everybody. My name is Belinda Seamark and I'm a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner. And tonight I'm here with the amazing Gina, multi-gifted, talented Gina she's the founder of the Center of Expanding Consciousness. She's an energy alchemist, Reiki master teacher, Cacao ceremony facilitator, and it's a big list, a CE5ET contact coordinator, and also a water ceremonialist. So welcome, Gina.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
so tell us a little bit about your journey, like where did you get started?
Oh gosh, where did I get started? I felt like I was just born to start. I just had one of those childhoods where a lot of the things that I do now as my profession, I was just born into doing. I've just had a mosquito land on my nose. Can you see that?
Can't see it.
I remember as a young child being able to do things like astral travel very easily. And that was sort of one of the things that I did as a game. Like I would be in the lounge and there might be a few toys around, as a 3 or 4 year old, but I would just sit there and think, well, I'm going to go and do something a lot more adventurous than stay in my lounge. I'm going to go and astral travel. So I would do things like travel off to Spain or go, be on a boat on the ocean or do other things. And it was very, very real. And later in life, when I did start traveling the world, I realized actually I absolutely have been here before. I remember traveling there when I was a child, from my lounge room doing these things. I was always curious about healing, and my mum had a friend who was a herbalist, and he was an energy healer and a meditation facilitator as well. And I remember when I was around about 6 years old, he came round and he said, that girl, like pointing to me, is going to be an energy healer. And I always remember the feeling I got when he said those words. And I've never quite had that feeling again, but I felt truly seen. I remember thinking, wow, someone actually sees me. And I just thought, awesome. And I was like, yeah, I am going to be that. And even though as a 6-year-old, I didn't, quite understand the logistics of it, like how you get there, what that means, what it looks like as a career or a profession, or however we want to label these things. I just knew that he was right, and I've never lost that in my sight. It was great having him around because he taught me a little bit about meditation. I got to practice healing when I was young. Got to work with crystals and investigate herbs. And when I was about 7 years of age, I begged and begged and begged my mum, can I please not go to school? It's so boring. I'm so sick of like kids playing with Care Bears and Barbie dolls, and I just don't want to be there. And it was just so simple, but I just didn't want to be there. And she was like, oh, right. And so she put me onto correspondence school. So that's kind of like a form of home education. And I did that for 1 year, and it was the best year of my life because my mum and her friend Walter, they would travel around New Zealand doing things like house and land clearings or delivering herbs to people or doing energy healing to people. So for me, that was the most amazing childhood. Like I would just hang out for that phone to ring, the old analog phones that would go ring, ring, and just ring through the house. I'd be like, yeah, my ears would prick up and I would just hope that it was one of those call outs. So, he would get requests from all around the North Island, can you go to Palmerston North to do energy healing? Can you go to Napier to do a house clearing? Can you go to Masterton to deliver herbs and this and that? And I would always be first in the car, ready to go, and I just couldn't wait. So that was kind of my classroom for a year. And then, of course, I went back to school and all that kind of stuff, but I never lost that interest, even though there's societal pressures and a lot of us go through that thing of where our natural intuition and our healing abilities might have been drummed out of us. Society certainly tried, but I never lost it because it was just too strong within me. I just always knew that was my compass. I was going back to it. So that's kind of like how I started. When I left school, it's not that I got it right straight away in terms of understanding how to become an energy healer. When I left school, the internet still wasn't around, so it was all about talking to people. And a lot of people did not know what energy healing was, or how you even begin a career in it, or what training you do. So there was still a lot of hurdles. I did a whole bunch of other things. I did volunteer work at a blind school over in England for a while. That was interesting, but it wasn't energy healing, so I still wasn't satisfied with it. I went to art school for a while to explore the creativity side of myself. I did go to university to study psychology and business, thinking that psychology might have been the answer. But a year into that, and I was like, I do not want to do this to people, like what I was being taught. I was like, it doesn't feel right to me. So that didn't work either. So then I finally stumbled across the idea, and this is through my travels, like traveling all around New Zealand, and meeting people and going through meditations and things like that. I went through a meditation in a forest. It was late at night, and I was guided there through my intuition. And I did a meditation there. It was actually quite scary because it was a lot of intense energy in this forest. But I had the most amazing meditation where I had beings come to me and say, you must work with your hands and never stop. And it was so clear and so strong that I wouldn't dare to question them. Like, it was sort of like, oh, that's a real command. There's a real knowing behind it. So I thought, okay. But then the next step again was more inquiry, because I still didn't actually know how to begin that process. I mean, I started to ask people at every opportunity, can I practice healing, give it a go and experiment and explore and get some feedback. I didn't have any process though to it. And I didn't have any kind of colleagues or other people to kind of like bounce ideas off and questions and curiosities off. But what I did come across was massage school, and they did offer a course in energy healing called Polarity. So that was my first certification. So I studied Polarity, and that was interesting. And I still use that technique this day, you know, like around grounding and the positive negative charge that we have in our body, and it's also the positive negative charge that's around the earth, and how we tap into that. But the body therapies and the energy healing that I studied at the New Zealand College of Massage was enough to get me working in an integrated health clinic, where I began my career as an energy healer back in 2001. And that was City Osteopaths, and it's still there in Featherston Street in Wellington. So that's the first place I had my job. And that was brilliant, because as an energy healer, I was surrounded by people that were really well trained in other modalities, but they were all natural, and they understood the body really well. So, and because we were an integrated health clinic, when we had a client, excuse me about my voice, when we had a client, we would have permission from the client to work together to gain the best outcome for them. So that was just better than any university I could have gone to, because I could go and talk to highly trained osteopaths, naturopaths, acupuncturists, Bowen therapists, herbalists, iridologists. You know, we could all just tap into each other and understand, you know, what's going on for someone from all these different skill sets. And the lovely thing is that they actually really did appreciate and want to know more about energy healing, which also led me to understand that I don't really know how to explain it. It's one of those things that it was like, well, I've always known how to do energy healing. It's been a natural thing, but I don't really understand the process or how or anything like that. And back then in 2001, science was only just beginning to investigate things such as Reiki and other energy healing modalities. Luckily today we have heaps of science to back it up, so there's loads of answers there, but it's kind of like my journey. Yeah.
That was almost like your own ready-made university, having all those healers there.
Yeah, amazing. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. And is that what led you into learning Reiki from there?
Yeah, so actually at that location at City Osteopaths, we had a receptionist who was just beautiful, such a beautiful woman. She had learnt Reiki level 1, and during my time there, gone to learn Reiki level 2. And she asked if we could exchange, that she could have a session of energy healing and exchange that with Reiki to practice what she was learning. So that was really the first time I'd experienced Reiki, like and actually receiving it and experiencing it. And at that stage, back in the like late 90s and the early 2000s, you didn't really hear of Reiki practitioners around much. There weren't that many. And she herself was going through a cancer, so working through that process with Reiki. And she was telling me about the benefits she was receiving from having Reiki, and that really caught my curiosity, because a lot of my own clients came to me because, you know, they would have cancer and they were wanting relief from it. And they themselves reported that they had relief from pain and felt a lot more peace and comfortable also with the idea of transition, because a lot of people are afraid to talk about the possibility of death. So having her there and talking to me about Reiki was how I first got exposed to the idea of it. So that was around 2001, 2002. However, I didn't find a Reiki teacher until 2005. And by that stage, I had moved to Australia. So that's when I started learning Reiki. And my reason for learning it is, one, curiosity, but two, the process. It was the first energy modality that actually taught me the process, and it answered a lot of questions. And I thought, okay, I get it now. This is a teachable thing. Reiki has already sorted out the process for how to explain certain things, how to teach other people, and how to, you know, develop skills. So that was a huge aha moment. I love Reiki for that, and that's why I still teach it, because it's a really easy process, and it's something that's very accessible to everyone.
With the polarity healing, that's an energy healing, is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
And with Reiki, because that's using, you know, Reiki life force energy, and which is everything around us, bringing it all in. Is there any similarity between the polarity healing or the Reiki? Is it quite different?
It is quite different. However, it's still under the one umbrella of energy healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we are tapping into that really subtle, invisible, you know, if you don't see energy yourself, some people see energy, but most people don't. So it's tapping into that invisible field that we have as part of our body. We all have it, you know, we've got that mental, emotional, spiritual, as we say, which is the energy body and the physical body. So it does still work in the energetic realm. But with Reiki, of course, there is a process where you go through an attunement and you bring through the life force energy, like you say. With the polarity, we are tapping into the parts of the body that are known to have a positive charge or a negative charge. And then the practitioner will be using the opposite, like a battery. So like each finger has a different charge to it, you know, like some are positive and some are negative. And we will touch the opposite. Like, so if I'm touching somebody's toes in a polarity session, a positive part of my body, like my fingers, will be touching a negative part of the toe. So there's a positive and negative movement that gets energy moving through the body. And it's a little bit similar, like polarity is also around understanding what you can do naturally, like grounding, you know, actually connecting your feet through to the earth. That's a natural way of doing polarity, like connecting the positive, negative charge. Things like going to near the beach has like negative ions. So that's part of polarity. And even though it's negative ions, it's good for you. Like it's a positive thing to actually have for you and breathe in. So it's learning about where on the earth, you know, there's more positive ions and more negative ions, as well as within the body system, where are the negative charge lines and where are the positive charge lines, and how do you play with those to change the movement of energy, you know, like maybe make it, increase it or decrease it, depending on what you need.
But you mostly work with Reiki now.
I do, yeah, because it's so intelligent, it just does it anyway. Like it does, it kind of supersedes the polarity aspect. I still always love to use like polarity, for grounding and like practical things. But Reiki sort of, in my opinion, supersedes it because it's so intelligent, just does all the work for you anyway.
Yeah, well, it's a little different to my path. I was doing energy healing with people when I was giving readings. And so many people would say, oh, how do you learn that? Where does that come from? And it was really hard to explain, just the fact that you were intentionally giving someone healing. So that's when I went on my Reiki path with my Reiki master. And it's amazing, like as you as a Reiki master, people would form a bond with you, and that, you become friends. And I have such a special bond with my Reiki master, and we're still friends to this day. She's wonderful. She's amazing. But doing Reiki, you can just, you can explain it to people. You can tell them how it works. And so I totally get what you mean about connecting the dots and the
Yeah.
So then you're the cacao ceremony facilitator, which I've been lucky enough to experience with you, and I just absolutely love it. You're a wonderful host as well. So can you tell us about that?
Sure. Yeah. So we all love chocolate, right? So I think everyone seems to love it. It seems to be one of the most widespread loved foods around the entire planet. I won't say that I've traveled to every, like every corner of the earth, but I used to, like before children, I used to travel quite a lot, but everywhere has chocolate. So in that respect, everyone's had cacao and we all love it. It makes us feel good if we don't eat too much. But the cacao properties, the cacao plant and the cacao bean, and in a cacao ceremony, we use pure cacao. So it's the whole food cacao bean without the sugar. So a chocolate, the difference between cacao and chocolate is that chocolate has had the cacao butter often removed and it has sugar added and usually milk, right? Because that's how, particularly Westerners, that's how our palate likes it or have got used to it. But traditionally, cacao is actually very bitter, which is a good thing for our body. It's a wonderful thing for getting our digestive enzymes going. It's really important to have something very bitter every day, which in our Western world we tend to avoid, but we shouldn't. And I like cacao because it's a really safe but powerful plant medicine. So there's very few contraindications. And even when there are a few contraindications, it's not about not having cacao, it's just about having less. So it's pretty safe for most people. The reason why I love it is it complements the work that I'm about. It helps to do heart expansion. So there's a lot of bioflavonoids, there's a lot of health benefits. But the thing I love about it the most is literally heart expansion. And 20 minutes after cacao has been consumed, I just enjoy observing everyone, because that's after 20 minutes, the biochemical reactions have started to take place within the body, and the vibrational entrainment has already happened from the first sip or just even holding it, so from the very beginning. And what I love about it is that people start to talk, they start to open their hearts, they start to really, when they're communicating, it becomes deeper, it becomes more thoughtful, it becomes really human. To me, it's like having the fireside chat. And it's how I feel that we probably were communicating a little bit more back in the tribal days, when we would have sat around a real fire and had that beautiful infrared light coming off the flame and started to wind down, let our guards down and really talk about the day, and orally pass on stories about our history and our learnings, and what amazing plants we came across in the jungle that day, or this and that, or what we did. And we start to really open up and heal and metabolize our emotions from the day and all that kind of stuff. These days, we just don't gather around a fire. That's not a common thing that we do. But for me, I really feel like a cacao ceremony is the closest thing that we kind of have of that at the moment. it seems to still stimulate that conversation, that deep talk. People let their guard down a little bit, but in a really safe way. And I just really enjoy the depth and the connection that happens. And when it comes from the point of view of healing, sometimes people just need to say what they need to say and express. And that's all the healing they need. They don't need to receive any advice. They don't need to have any feedback. They just need to know that they've said it, someone's heard it. And the plant, the cacao plant, has helped nurture that whole safe space. And it's helped, like if we talk about the energetic properties of the heart, and we talk about maybe the heart chakra, you know, it can be one of the first, well, it's a really common thing in our society to have quite a closed heart because we can get hurt so easily these days. You know, there's so much bullying, and there's so much social media stuff, and there's so much judgment on our looks. We have expectations around, you know, how our parents treat us, how our brothers and sisters treat us, how our friends treat us. And there's so much stress in society that our relationships seem to be quite strained. So the heart center is a center that seems to be kind of under attack a little bit. And when we talk about the energy field, cacao expands the heart and expands our energy field out. Whereas a lot of things like fear, anxiety, blame, shame, those sorts of emotions, they contract our energy field in. So the beautiful thing about cacao is it expands our heart, expands our energy field, makes us feel vibrant, is very nutritious. And I could go on about it for a lot because in ceremony I talk about it for hours. So you should probably stop me here if you've got a question.
No, I was just really interested in hearing about that because with the ceremonies and when I've had cacao with you, I find that it's not just the drinking of the cacao, but it's the appreciation and, you know, how you guide and you talk us through, you know, even if we're saying a prayer to the north, south, east and west and bringing all the elements in and the animals in, but just really having that appreciation and, you know, giving back and having those thoughts, and just even that part of the ceremony is really opens you up as well, you know, as well as drinking the cacao obviously, but so yeah. It's amazing.
It does, and that's a really good point. It's all about the remembrance as well and being a whole person. And when we have the cacao, we're having the whole food, like it has everything in it, unlike chocolate, like it has the cacao butter, it's the actual cacao bean. And the cacao bean represents earth, and then we need to mix it with water, which is another element. But we need the fire to bring those two elements together to help emulsify it. And then we need the air, the wind, like the whisking of all the ingredients in order to get it creamy and kind of emulsified. So it reminds us that we need all the elements to come together to help create our spirit or ignite our spirit, which is that's when the steam, like the spirit of the cacao, comes off the top. So it's this one cup that we hold that actually reminds us of all the elements that we're made of. And then, of course, in a traditional ceremony, cacao is served in a calabash or like a round handleless cup. And that is the womb. This represents the feminine aspect of ourselves. And the whisk, which is in Peru is called the molinillo, that is it's a long phallic whisk symbol. So that's the masculine symbol. And it's the idea of bringing the feminine and the masculine together to seed new growth. And so we have all these elements. And that is part of the magic of a cacao ceremony, because for anyone that goes to, say, a healing session with an energy healer, even if it's not talked about, the energy healing does, you know, everything, you know, is balancing out the masculine and the feminine and all the elements within us. And even better, and this is what cacao does as well, like in a ceremony, is that it helps us remember that we are connected to all these things. And a lot of the time we just need to remember because we are so distracted in our current society about everything. And we just crave connection. And part of that connection is actually remembering that's right. We are of earth, we are of water, we are of, you know, air, you know, everything else. So we just have to have that quiet time to remember ourselves.
Absolutely, and I look forward to our next gathering, hopefully
Great.
not too far away. And next, your CE5, you know, that's a whole different ball game, you know, the CE5 ET contact.
Oh,
What's it
wow.
like? Yeah.
Where do you want to start with that?
No. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you go.
I just was thinking about our expedition down the South Island. You know, I've been involved with CE5 for quite a long time, but kind of, you know, life gets in the way and you get busy doing other things. And then now I've come back into it. So the expedition at the earlier in the year, was it March? March, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Or May, March.
March.
And that was just incredible. It was such an incredible experience, you know. And so, how did you get into that? Because you are actually a trained facilitator, aren't you, or
Well,
coordinator?
yeah, I don't know if there's any. Well, it's not a qualification. I don't think it's not like you
No, I
can be a
didn't mean
trained.
it like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, but not so much a trained facilitator. But I've done it for long enough that I do facilitate groups. Yeah, I
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Yeah, so I coordinate groups in the local area for C5. How did I get into it? Well, I guess I should probably honor and go back to my childhood and my experiences with beings then. Like I mentioned, I've just never forgotten. Like I've always felt connected and I've never lost a connection to everything. Like right from when I was born, I just remembered I was connected to everything. Even though I couldn't put the words to it, I knew there was a unity consciousness. I absolutely could tap into animals and plants and other humans and beings, like beings who were around. I was raised as an only child, like so I didn't have brothers and sisters around. And sometimes people would say to me, "Oh, are you lonely? Like you don't have anyone to play with?" But for me, I was like, "What? I have got so many things to play with." Like, and when I mean things, I mean beings. And you know, I had so much communication going on. I was like, "I'm not lonely at all." And whenever I had a question or a problem, I always had someone to ask. And that being said as well, not just galactic beings, but I could see spirits and, you know, I could see my grandparents when they passed and I could see, you know, other things going on. So I never felt lonely. As a child, though, I did have beings, like three beings that used to visit me. And I remember them very clearly. And it was around the age of 6 or 7, and they were around about the height of my door handle. And that's how I reference them. And they were kind of greyish, you know, I wouldn't say so much blue, more grey, and about your door handle height. But I always knew that they were coming before I could visually see them because of how my body responded. It was almost like I went a little bit paralysed. Like the energy in the room or around me would become so intense that I could barely move. It was almost like I was somehow instructed to sit wherever I was, like on my bed or on the chair in the lounge or something, and not move. And there's also something like I couldn't quite speak very loudly, like, you know, because sometimes I'd want to like call out to my mum to show her the beings, you know, like, to say they're here. But I actually couldn't get my like loud voice out. So there was something about the energy when they came in that altered things. And then I would see them come past the window, somehow come in the house, like through I'm assuming through the front door, and then they'd be at my door. And then I remember going onto the craft. I don't remember the transportation part of it. I just remember seeing them and then I'd end up on the craft and would be doing things. I do remember after about a year or so, I asked them to stop because I learned about stranger danger. And I was actually, I'm not meant to go and leave the house. And I'm not meant to like, you know, accept invites from people or candy or other things like that. So with that kind of education, I also said to them, actually, I don't think I'm allowed to go with you. And they were very respectful and they said, oh, okay. And they respected that. So I didn't go on the craft anymore after that point. So that was interesting though, because it used to come out in my play. So other parents and things would be like, that's unusual. Like it's a different kind of game or different comments that I would be making, because I'd be talking about my experiences on the craft or these beings like these aliens. And at that point in time, this is like in the early 80s as well, because I was born in the 70s, just to give you an idea that there wasn't actually anything on the TV. Like, you know, it wasn't like I was watching TV about aliens and getting all these ideas or anything. There wasn't that around, in my house anyway. So that was like the first experience. And then doing my energy healing work, because I'm primarily an energy alchemist, and that differs slightly to an energy healer, although it's easy to say energy healer. An energy alchemist is someone that does intentionally change the frequency, light, and information of an environment, including either the energy field of a person or a room or an environment that we're in order for transmutation to happen. So that's, if I'm talking about someone's energy field, then we might want to transmute something like a trauma or a density or a lower emotion such as anxiety, and transmute that into something that we classify as better, like a higher frequency, like transmuting anxiety into acceptance, or releasing a trauma and creating a dense, hard vibration into a lighter, higher one, and then it just vibrates out. But when it comes to like beings and galactic work, it's also like using the alchemy to change the frequency of a room or a circle that we're sitting in, so that the frequency becomes more welcoming and easier to access, for the galactic beings. And because of that, it meant that when I started working as an energy healer, like right back in 2001, other beings instantly were part of the work. And they very, very clearly taught me a lot of lessons that, I hadn't quite learned at school yet. Like my ego, can't have an ego. It's got nothing, like whatever is happening for the client, nothing to do with me. Doesn't matter, how good my brochure looks or what studies I've done or whatever. It's got nothing to do with me. So they taught me all about ego. They would often, not always, but often actually ask me to stand aside, like step back and allow their energies to come in. And they taught me so much because I would watch them, and the things they would do for the body and the energy field, where they would place, I say their hands because they're mostly humanoid forms that would come in. They would place their hands and their body and their positioning around in certain ways that would help to heal the person and alchemize whatever's going on. And it was really, really interesting for me to watch. They would also change their position if they were in a group, because some of them would have different frequencies, and simply by changing their positions within a room would change the kind of portal that they're creating. And in some ways they would create like a frequency bed for people to be on. And once again, this is all them like doing it, but as an alchemist, I'm helping to facilitate the energy within a space to allow them to come in a comfortable way and do the work they need to. So it's a really long way, sorry, of me explaining how I got into C5.
Yeah.
But it's doing that kind of work was quite lonely, because it was always me as the only human, and not having another human to kind of, have it after work drink with and have a chat about who turned up that day. Like in the room as such, there just wasn't other people to talk to about those experiences. And with my profession as well, I don't always talk to the client about who turned up and who did what, because unless they specifically ask. So, after 2 decades or more of doing that, or it was about 2 decades, I came across the actual C5 protocol, which I didn't know there was a protocol involved until around, I think, 2019 or 2018, 2019. And so, that was developed by Dr. Stephen Greer. And it's a little bit like the Reiki story. It's like finally going, oh, there's someone who has figured out a process. There's a how, there's a community. It's all been figured out. It's all been done. Great. So for me, that was like my Reiki moment. Finding C5 was once again actually going, oh, wow, someone's figured all this out. I can learn the protocol. I'll try it. Yes, it worked. Feels great. It's got instant access to a community of people who are really comfortable most of the time talking about beings and energy and all this kind of stuff. And so that's how I kind of got into it. And then after, watching some documentaries and connecting with Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 Contact app, which is downloadable on smartphones. About a year after that, I found out about the CE5 Aotearoa and connected in with that community. And someone local in my area, about half an hour away, used to run sessions every fortnight. So I got involved in that. And then, once the pandemic was over, we could go on retreats and things. And so that's what I started doing. And that's kind of how it happened. Yeah.
And you're got a really exciting journey coming up, an experience, because you're actually going over to meet Dr. Stephen Greer, aren't you, and do advanced training with him.
Yes, and I'm so looking forward to that. And isn't it amazing how manifestation works? I mean, I remember when I first came across Dr. Stephen Greer's documentaries and his protocol, thinking, I'm going to meet you one day. I have to meet you one day. Don't know how it's going to happen, but very fortunate to be, asked to go along and attend. And grateful to Jeremy, who's extended that invite as well, who's who's the founder of CE5 Aotearoa. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it. I can't say much more until I get back because I don't know what we're going to experience, but I'm looking forward to sharing the trainings and the knowledge that I gain over there with anyone that's interested over here.
And I'm looking forward to when you get back to share that with you. That's going to be amazing. So no pressure.
Yeah.
We'll have high expectations. No, yeah. I'm sure it'll be absolutely amazing. And your water work, your water ceremonialist, tongue-tied, twisted, can't get that word out, but can you tell us about that, working with water? Because you've got some amazing things you're working on with Denise.
Yeah, that's right. So I've always, once again, had a great connection with water. It's always fascinated me. And I've done environmental campaigns just over a decade ago, about maybe 14 years ago, all based around, our oceans and the water, keeping plastic pollution out of our waterways and all that kind of stuff. I've always had a magnetic pull to water, never quite understood why. This seems to be the story of my life. I get pulled into things, start things, but don't know the process, don't know the why until years later, like the Reiki, like the CE5, takes me a long time to figure things out. But it's coming together with water now. So Denise, who's my aunt, she's an intuitive as well, and she does light language, and we just really enjoy working together. And she was brave enough to, at a whim, come with me on a water discovery trip earlier in this year. And that was because last year I got a download, through a meditation, guiding me that I must now be working with water, but in a more public way. Like I have to start actually talking out loud about it, like on platforms, and do things and collaborate with people. I can't just keep it as my private curiosity anymore. It needs to be bigger than that. So I used to always teach water, like in my Reiki classes, I always talk about Dr. Emoto's work, the power of intention. We always send Reiki to our water, in every course that I teach. And I ask people to make that a daily routine for them, like sending that intention to water. The actual water ceremonial part that I'm doing is, I've noticed over the last year, I've got a frequency of sound that comes through my headspace. That seems to be related to water and land and song lines. So I will get a calling to literally go to a body of water or a location. And is it one of those strong niggles, like it's like an itch, you have to do it. It won't go away until you actually go there. Yeah. So I know sometimes I challenge this because I am a mum of children. I can't just jump in the car and just take off and just do these things. But, wherever the information comes from, spirit guides, beings, whatever it is, or the spirit of the water, I have to go at some point. I have to make it happen. And so I do. And Denise was great. She just said, yep, okay, let's go. Let's just follow your intuition, and let's just go with it. And the first main trip that we did was down south before our CE5 event that we did. And all these different synchronicities happened, which I won't go into, but it was pretty amazing. But one little example with this, and this is just, highlighting how the universe works. We started off in Dunedin, but we had no accommodation in Dunedin, and it was the weekend of the Pink concert. And there was no accommodation to 2.5 hours, radius around Dunedin. And I was like, oh, this is the first spot that we're meant to start at, though. So I was like, well, how's this going to, we've got nowhere to stay. Anyway, Denise comes across or remembers about one person she knows that lives close to Dunedin, about 40 minutes out, and they've met one time and they hit it off, but it was just that one connection. Anyway, she happens to make contact. She has a big 5-bedroom house all to herself, can accommodate us, perfect. And she drives us down on one of those days to this gorgeous beach called Karatani, and there's a Huriata Point all about the water. And I didn't know any of this until our host took us there and explained it all. And I was just like, okay, this is how the universe works. Because walking on that beach, I could feel codes actually coming up through the soles of my feet, like my bare feet. I could feel a huge heart expansion that was beyond words. I can't even articulate all the feelings that went through my energy field and my heart. My eyes would water up like lacrimation. They'd get quite teary. And I'd have to go into moments of silence. But when I go into moments of silence, for me, it's very loud. I hear a lot. I hear notes being played and callings and sounds and almost like past ceremonies that may have been done there. So there's a lot of knowledge and information that gets passed on. So that's kind of like how it happens. And we also went into underground caves near Castle Hill. That was really special. Very interesting and very different once again, but amazing, amazing codes coming from the underground aquifers and cave systems there. And we did a water ceremony. You were there at Castle Hill.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you remember about it, but
Yes.
you do, yeah. So we did a little one with Jeremy and myself and the whole group there. What do you remember from that in terms of the experience?
It was just because that we did it when we first got the water down the bottom of before we walked up the hill, and that was just like giving a blessing to the watering and giving thanks. And then we did it when we got it to the top of the hill, didn't we, at Castle Hill? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, for me, I just remembering back to that was just giving like a lot of peace and love and gratitude, back to the earth and back to the water and giving thanks. And it was a really special moment, that we shared in our group. So that's my memory of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the water is an amazing energy conductor. And what's really sparked my interest, and I'll tie this into CE5, because the water ceremonies are not they're not like associated with CE5 as such, but I've got this huge curiosity, and there's going to be a large component of my work that is done with CE5 because I've started to, with CE5 groups, when we make contact, is actually have a bottle of water in the centre of our time that we meditate and make contact. And that's because water is an energy conductor, but it also holds information. And so I've started to use Veda Austin's crystallography method after CE5 events to actually see what is in the water from these events, and then just keep a record of things. And it's quite amazing because there are specific structures within water that will show themselves that indicate that we did receive information or downloads. And sometimes, the look of beings even show up in these water crystallographies. And it's really quite special. It's almost like getting a little art piece of water from our CE5 contact events. But beyond that, like, the water is really important to me. I do get a calling. Recently, like a few months ago, back at Lake Pukaki, I could hear the spirit of the water call. It was May. It was probably 2 degrees. And I was like, it was saying to me, you need to go swimming in me. And I was like, do I really need to go swimming in you? It's like, it's 2 degrees. I don't mind the cold water. I am used to cold water immersion and I do practice it and I like it, but I was still questioning it. It was like, it's very cold, but it was very, very adamant. So I got the calling, the spirit of Lake Pukaki was like, you must go in. So I did, and I tell you, when I got out, I was lacrimating, like I was crying. There was this huge feeling inside me that was beyond love. It was beyond bliss. I want to say it was beyond enlightenment. It was beyond anything I have felt in any of the healing sessions. Like when I give energy healing sessions, I'm in a really high vibrational state, very blissful. I was beyond all of that. I can't even find a word that describes it. And so what is really, really powerful, and I have seen actual galactic, energy from craft and beings come down and get infused into the water. And I believe these are cosmic codes. And these cosmic codes can be drunk, like if we drink the water, but can also be entrained. So an example of that is like I've got some of the Lake Pukaki water in this bottle here. And if I'm doing an online ceremony, we'll go through a process of entraining other people's water, like say where you are, with the codes that are inside the Lake Pukaki water. And that's a way of transmitting all around the globe the cosmic codes that have come through from certain beings. And Denise is wonderful at bringing through the Lemurian aspect as well, because a lot of these codes are quite Lemurian based as well. Not all, but a huge amount is Lemurian. And in some ways, it's sort of allowing us once again to remember who we are. Similar to the whole thing about talking about all the elements in a cacao ceremony, is about remembrance. Drinking the water from a ceremony is all about remembrance. It's got codes in there that come from all sorts of things, not just the earth, which is millions of years old, and structuring the water, but also galactic beings, elemental beings, nature spirits, all sorts. And as we consciously drink it, we kind of absorb all those transmissions and all that information from them as well. And then I'd love to work, and while I do work with water in terms of using intention to structure it in a homeopathic type way. So I do believe it can heal us from the inside out as well if we use our intention.
Oh, absolutely. You put Reiki into, water, or set an intention in water. And it's like, if you've seen the rice jar experiment where you put lots of love into it and it lasts for a long time and set positive intentions, but you put the negative intentions and it will go very dark and black. And water is the same, and we are, is it 70% water? So yeah. Water is very important to us. So yeah, it's I totally get it. Setting those intentions, and whenever I drink water, I put my hands on and I give thanks to that water and set the intention that it's going to invigorate me. So yeah, it sounds amazing. Will you be teaching that with people, or is it something at the moment that you're developing?
Well, I haven't thought about teaching it, but absolutely doing ceremony as in including people. Like if people want to come along, come, gather in ceremony together as a water tribe, as a tribe of people coming together to honour the water and to be receptive to the codes and the information and the light that's in the water, and have the intention that it can heal us and heal the earth. And I really believe it's a really important part of our ascension as well, because just like cacao helps to open and expand our heart, I feel that water actually helps to expand our entire consciousness. And I really feel like it's the fastest way to expand the consciousness around the entire planet and universe. I think we're so lucky to be on a water dominant planet. So there's got to be something in it. And some people even go as far as saying water is God. It's within us, it's around us, it's everywhere. It's got very high intelligence. Can't live without it. And there's just so much to it. But I know I could speak for hours on it. But the water ceremonies, I will be doing more group-based ones. At the moment, because I get the calling, I just tend to go. And often it's just on my own. And if there's people around, there's people around, but I kind of don't make any formal events of it. The other thing too, because it's an outdoor thing, it's unpredictable with the weather, but I would like to start doing retreats at some time next year near a body of water so that we've got a couple of days and we can go out and actually work with the water a lot. And Denise and I will be doing a 5-week course, which will be combining the Lemurian activation through light language and working with water as well. So we'll be combining those two things together.
And will that be online, accessible to people? Or okay.
Yeah.
And moving forward, how do, because I know you've just had a big hiccup with your Facebook and people being able to get in touch with you and do workshops and things like that. So you're kind of having to rebuild that. So I will put links in here for people, but as an in-person workshops, but also what else are you offering online for people?
Yeah, so to find me now, because I was hacked, so I've lost all my social media. But so Facebook now is Gina Noetica. My email address is quantumenergyalchemy@gmail.com, and my YouTube page is the Centre of Expanding Consciousness. So you can find information there. Usually if you go to my Facebook, most events will be posted there, and I will be, when I'm traveling around, like going over to America, and then I've got a few months traveling around New Zealand, going to different bodies of water, I'll probably just be doing lives on YouTube. So it's probably better that people just sign up and subscribe to YouTube. That way they get a notification when I'm at a location and I'm doing a live event. They can tune in and see what's happening at a lake or, the ocean. And if I'm around in the area, then obviously reach out and say hi and we can meet in person or things like that. So.
Right, well, thank you very much, Gina, and really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your time with me and sharing some amazing information and everything that you do. Because I know how busy you are at the moment with packing and moving, and things are changing for you at the moment. So, yeah, thank you very much. And like I say, I will put all the links at the bottom of this video, and so where people can contact you.
Okay. Thanks, Belinda. Thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.
You're welcome.